Yeah, those are things. It's internal settings that you need to mess with inside there. But yeah, because again, I put morning D.E.W inside YouTube, and you don't come up really. I don't know if you're shadow banned or what, but everything except you comes up pretty much, you know. So when I look for you, yeah, when I look for you inside YouTube, I can't find you. But if I go to a search engine, you pop up the first thing, right? Very interesting. Well, they're trying to. Okay, and three, two, one. Then I guess. Yeah, because you come up number one right here on my DuckDuckGo. And we are live. I see it soon live right here. Two people watching. Might have to turn on the AC because it's getting real hot in the camper here. It's supposed to be like 90 something today. Yeah. Oh, that's way better connection, way clearer. Yeah, I lost you there. It just kind of said lost connection. Okay, well, if you see me sweating, I'm just going to continue here. I can't turn on the AC because I couldn't hear you, and it's going to make too much background noise in the microphone. So, oh, I didn't close that up. Yeah, thanks. That first one we did was an epic, I mean, epic chat about all things interconnected. Yeah. And for some reason, just like we're having a problem here with the stream today, we had a problem with the last stream. And as you can see, the world around us seems to be spinning out of control, and no pun intended with the spinning is the rotation of the Earth. But it seems everything's interconnected. And when we go back through history, it's your research, my research, Christian up at Ice Age Farm and Diamonds, Ben up at Suspicious Observers, uh, Jake over those guys over at the Grand Solar Minimum channel, Lee, Wheelbarger, and everybody in between that's thrown, and Charlie too. Everybody has put information into this about, what's really going on with the cycles here, because it looks like there's an intertwining, especially when we go back on the 400-year cycle. It seems that we always get these same things happening again. There's an economic collapse, there's population migration, food prices get expensive, you can't grow enough food, and then people want to ask for change in government. Now, when I look across the landscape of just today's media, I see 100% of the same things that happened every grand solar minimum occurring today again. But it seems like we're not really at the cusp of the super big changes yet. We're just getting a taste of what's coming. But ticking the box on 100% of everything already that's been seen through the last, 5,000 years of these events? It's a little strange for me to understand why the media is not talking about it. They are, but they're trying to direct you in a narrative, but they're not talking about the true causation or how we can prepare for these events. Like me, you're looking out the back of a camper window here. I'm living in a camper now while I'm going out working on my land to get it ready. We have about 2 months left. I mean, you all have about 2 months left to get prepared for what you're going to get ready for the changes. They're here. You have until about maybe late September, and then it's finished. Well, however prepared you are at that point is about as prepared as you're going to get, because it looks like there's some big surprises inbound in October, and also with the November elections, things are just going to not function correctly after that for some point of time or some period of time. And I don't know if it's going to keep adding in the layer cake there. Yeah, Mike, go ahead. Well, we see the snow in Beijing already. August, snow in Beijing. It's snowing in Russia. So again, we got August snows in Russia. Doesn't portend well for summer temperatures. And then if we go in the southern hemisphere, we look at, the coldest temperature records ever set in Tasmania ever since records began there. And snow in places they haven't seen snow in 80 years across Western Australia and some places in the outback. Yeah, that's a huge one. And I was diving all over the Australian media this morning looking to try to piece a story together. All they're talking about is the floods. So there's massive floods going on in Australia. But where you really need to go to get this information doesn't lie within the Australian media, because I put record cold temperatures, and as doing a simple search like that, everything the way they worded it, you had to put the coldest temperature ever, or the coldest temperature record. So if you put in record cold temperatures, it still won't pull up because it has to be an exact word search. And they keep switching the titles. So when you're looking for record cold temperatures, they worded the titles very strangely, so that won't come up in any of their query searches. I think it was done on purpose, because as a researcher looking for this type of info every day, record cold temperature is a very simple thing. Record cold in this place. Coldest temperature ever recorded. Who puts that in a headline? You don't. And then coldest temperature ever located in this region. Like, yeah, okay, understood. But that doesn't pull up on the query search, which it should. And everything from the Sydney Morning Herald to the ABC News, which is Australian Broadcasting Corporation, and I just don't get it. Why the main publications in Australia aren't covering their own record snow and record cold events down there. They're trying to bury it, but everybody's seeing it. The entire social media is alight with record cold stuff and snow here and snow there, blue warnings, and Australia's been at the forefront of telling everybody how warm it's going to get, yet the opposite's happening. So I was told that the southern hemisphere is leading the northern hemisphere by one season, meaning that, and and South America got incredible amounts of snow earlier. If you go over and look in South America last month, they had the highest snowfall totals ever. And South Africa also broke an enormous amount of cold record temperatures. So when you look around the whole southern hemisphere, yeah, it's everywhere, right? So think about this is going to sweep up to the northern hemisphere for this winter. So they're leading us by one season. That's 15 feet. That's 15 feet for you in the US. Yeah, I got to do the metric to English conversion here. 15 feet. Yeah, the Americans down there, 15 feet of snow. That's a lot. Modern minimum, yeah, modern minimum. Dalton was 1800s, but again, you're looking at what was that? Tambora erupted during that time year without a summer. Tambora eruption, and then later on, like the 1880s, you had Krakatoa go off, and that was the yeah centennial minimum. So it seems that whenever we go into lows in solar activity, we get giant eruptions. Mm-hmm. And Lamont for life. Share the love. Share the love. Share the love with the planet. Share the love with Sasquatch, our brethren of the forest, who decided to live underground and get out into the forest on the last cycle of technology. A bit off, but relevant. Oh, wait a second. Yeah, Mike, hold on. I got like 15, well, not 15, but I got 3 or 4 different people coming in saying you got no audio. It says I can only hear David. Yeah, Mike, no audio. I can't hear you, Mike. And then another next person down there. Who was that? Grandma Rhonda says I can't hear Mike. So yeah, and then Dana says I'm only hearing David. So that's at least the fifth one that says they can't hear you. And then next one said, who Bottle Caps puts in says, Mike, your microphone's turned off. Yeah, go ahead and figure that out. I'll go ahead and figure that out for a second here. I will ramble on for a second. I want to continue with that point about the planetary alignments. That's a super important part, you know, because those gas giants do line up in the one quadrant or one little tiny section of our solar system in a square. Now that is standard for every grand solar minimum. But what's exceptional about this one is you got to think about the tightness of the square. So a lot of times it's pretty much a square, but it might be sort of a triangle, a little bit, not exactly a perfect square, but a couple degrees of arc off that gives it sort of a, you know, not exact or trapezoidish or something like this shape. This one is about as perfect of a square as you can get within 1 degree of arc off one planetary connection on those four sides, 1 degree of arc off of a perfect square. Now you really need to go back to 79 AD to find the same geometry of 1 to 2 degrees arc off to create a square. Every grand solar minimum, we'll find this under different varying degrees of squareness, if you will, how tight the square is. But when those four gas giants line up out there, something electromagnetically turns on with them. It creates its own magnetic field. And, you know, since I'm living out in the farm community now, I was talking to a couple old timers. These guys are like 80 plus. I didn't ask their exact age, but they were definitely old. A lot of very knowledgeable, still incredibly, their wit was with them, just like a 20-year-old. They were firing, you know, even though they're 80. Must be the good food. 80 plus. We were talking about gardening with the moon, and I was explaining the solar cycles and about the quadrants of the, you know, how these four gas giants are going to line up in one quadrant. Now, they were saying that gardening with the moon, the magnetic field of the sun allows you to get a better yield if you plant the seeds with the new moon and then do your pruning as the full moon is going into the new moon. Well, they were just simply stated, well, that sounds like a second electromagnetic field, like a second moon in the sky. What kind of effects do you think that'll have on agriculture and our ability to grow food? And I said, you know what? I don't know. But it is going to create its own magnetic field out there as a second magnetic field along with the moon. So if the moon affects agricultural productivity, and then we have a second magnetic field, you just need to wonder, are they going to couple on the same, where it'll be just like the full moon where we'll get higher yields by planting at the new moon? Or will they be inverse and canceling each other where we'll get almost no yields? I'm not sure, because you could say bring it indoors and we could try to protect it, but I'll say, you know, the Earth's magnetic field goes through buildings. So, and I guess unless you're growing in some type of ultra fortified Faraday cage, you're going to have the same difficulties depending, or increased yield depending on what this extra electromagnetic field is going to do with the gas giants out there.
Wow.
Not sure.
I had
Give
no
us a
idea.
sound check, Mike.
I had no idea. That's really interesting. Thanks for sharing that. Hopefully everybody can hear me now. The microphone is on, and hopefully you can hear me. Just give me a yes or a no in the comment section. Let me know.
All right, I want to respond to Lamond for Life there. It says, I watch your channel about using rocks to open a can. That's right. I had a can opener next to me, but that's way too easy. Because you got to think about it. In a bug out situation, are most people going to remember to get into their drawer and get a can opener? Absolutely not. That's probably the last thing on anybody's mind. Unless it's in your bag ready to go, most people are going to forget a can opener. So I was just trying. I saw a crazy Russian scientist that opened a can and fed his cat and ate some tuna with his cat by opening using a rock to open a can. But the thing was, so you're not going to be in the perfect world where you always have concrete next to you or always have like a flat surface to do it. So I was trying to use what was around me and doing it the most difficult way it could be done to show it can still be done, but understanding that your mind frame, especially surviving this grand solar minimum, you got to understand you're never going to have everything you need to get ready to get through it. If you've been preparing for 20 years and you've been, making $500,000 or $2 million a year and you're able to buy everything you could possibly buy to get ready for it, and you've been doing that for 20 years, okay, you're going to be pretty close to ready where you need to be for everything. If you haven't, you're not going to be as ready as you could be. So that was the whole point of the video, was Yeah, there's a lot of easier ways to do thing, like, lighting a lighter. That's the easy way to start a fire. But what if you don't? Are you able to get a bird nest and be able to do something? The mind
Mm.
frame is all about it. Okay, this is not going to work. What's plan B? Okay, that doesn't work. What's plan C? That didn't work. Okay, what's plan D? And not to give up and not to bend into that I can't do it. It's about working around the solution, because that's going to be your mind frame moving forward. Your whole daily existence is going to be about working through problems, finding ways to overcome difficulties, just like we did through this COVID here. Look how
Hmm.
many changes you've made in your life so far.
Oh yeah.
I'm just saying, going through these next few years, when food gets difficult, you're gonna have to make a lot of real, like, crazy workarounds in life to try to get through these next 10 years.
It's true.
So yeah, you can use a can opener. That's way too easy. Why would you do that? Anybody can do that.
Yeah. Well, and just think, I
What
mean,
happens if you have to think out of the box and you got no other choice? What are you going to do then?
right?
Is your mind ready? Yeah, really. That's what it was all about. Is your mind ready?
Yeah. And I mean, and you were not in a situation mentally where it was like, I need food now. This was just something that you wanted to try, and you made it difficult for yourself. So just think of how even more difficult it would be if you're not mentally prepared for that kind of a situation, right?
Yeah,
So,
people are like, just bash the can open. Well, if you do that, A, you're going to lose all of your food, and it's probably going to spill out onto the ground and get covered with, like, dust and things you don't want to put back in your mouth.
yeah.
And you'll lose all the water out of it. So if you're in a real emergency situation, I know the water's really salty, but that might be a benefit. I mean, as long as you're not doing it every day, but to be able to have that salt to hold the liquid in your body, because,
Yeah.
when you're getting dehydrated, if you got salt tablets to keep that water in your body. So yeah, you could, but you don't want to just go around bashing cans open and losing all the nutrition and water. If there's a different way to open a can and keep everything so you can eat it and drink it.
Mm-hmm.
Now that you got to be in a bad situation if you didn't prepare enough where you're drinking the water out of your cans to stay alive. I don't want to be there because you didn't prepare remotely enough then, if that's the case.
Yeah.
But just as an example.
Right. Well, I appreciate all the videos and all the information that you've been sharing for years now. And something else I wanted to talk about here was, maybe not everybody knows what our sun cycles go through. We have a minimum for 11 years and then a maximum for 11 years. And that's been a regular cycle. But every so often we go through a long minimum, and it can last up to 50 years. During these last minimums, the major events that were reported, we talked about already, were volcanoes, but as well economics. And you know more about that than I do. Share some information on that, please.
Well, when we look at these fingerprints of the grand solar minimum, you have to realize that almost everything you're seeing today, now this is my opinion of what I'm trying to do the research and put it together in a different fashion.
Mm-hmm.
Because, Mike and I, we're reporting on what's happening in the real world events, on what you see out, like the volcanoes, the tremendous extremes and everything, the out of season anomalies that are happening, and all this affects agriculture.
Yes.
But if you bring it down to the very base of a country's economy, is how much food they can produce. Because a country's wealth is truly denominated by how much food it can produce. Now, understand metals, gold and silver mining, etc. But if your country doesn't have enough food and your people can't eat, they can't actually contribute to economic activity, because they're starving and they're malnourished and they're making bad decisions, or they just can't work because they don't have enough calories in their bodies.
Mm-hmm.
So let's bring it back. The very base of an entire civilization is predicated on how much food it can grow. We're coming into a time where we're going to slash that by probably, Valentina Zarkova says we're going to drop 80% by 2028 from where we are today in terms of productivity. So let's say if we have 100 million tons of productivity of a certain crop, by 2028, her forecast that we'll only get 20 million tons.
Mm-hmm.
So that's definitely not going to be enough food to feed the planet. So then you got to swing over into the economy, because that'll greatly affect the economy. Now, what do we see now? Gold and silver. And gold had the biggest delivery ever, where physical gold is now being taken delivery of on the COMEX. Now, you got to realize that since the history of that market trading, there's been more gold taken into physical hands in these first 6 months than ever for an entire year ever in the past of the COMEX trading.
Hmm.
So there's still 6 months to go, and they've already blown past every other year. So what that means is there's somebody out there that's scarfing up as much metal as they can because they understand on a reset or a collapse of economy that gold and silver are going to be the new wealth, as well as cryptocurrency. And you can now see what this virus whole thing is playing into about a lockdown of the economy, a lockdown of the citizens across the planet so you can't move, a reset of the economy because of an evaporation. Cryptocurrency is where we're going with gold and silver. Now, just look back in history, and I'll challenge you to find any time when there was mass crop losses, when metals and other exchange mediums didn't take the place, and where, let's say you have the money and you can't buy the food, then what? It's, at some point, even if you have the money, you're not going to be able to get the food. Or if some countries have the exports, they're not going to sell it because, well, they want to keep their people happy. And another thing to understand is a well-fed army continues to fight for you with the allegiance, because most times through history, they're not going to feed just the soldier, they'll feed their families too. That way when the soldiers continue to fight, they understand that their families are being fed as long as they keep allegiance to whatever country, party, whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
But as soon as the food and the nutrition stops to the families, they will no longer be willing subjects for you. So you got to think about how much of the food that's available will be rediverted into the military or security forces to try to keep them motivated to protect whatever it is. Let's go back through history, and we find in the 1600s, every grain shipment that moved through the UK or England, let's go back, we'll call it England for the make it better sake, because it was back then England.
Yeah.
100% of the grain shipments were accompanied by military transport because they were attacked 100% of the time. 100% of the time. These guys got rifles, and the farmers and the peasant would come out with pitchforks and slingshots and whatever else to come out, roadblocks, and try to drop burning logs on the road to stop the convoys, to grab the food. Every time, 100% of the time. So I don't know what's going to go on with our current era, but you can see everything being laid out into a perfect rhyming repeat copy paste from 1600s, 1300s, 800 AD, 400 AD, 2400 BC, and as far back as you want to go in these 400-year iterations, we're getting the same again and again. I am so shocked that it's so similar, but the media is not covering it, and the economy is going to be a huge part of this. But they're going to have to evaporate the economy to get you to accept the new system. My personal feeling is they're going to put everybody in such duress that you're going to be begging for anything to get you back to normal so you can eat. You're going to be begging for the change. That's how bad it's going to get, on purpose, an orchestrated evaporation to get you to beg for the new system, because there is no more old stuff. Scary part. That's truly the frightening part, is they're going to put people in that position to get you to accept the new system.
I just want to say
they didn't do that in the last grand solar minimums. We're kind of a new era here with this whole tech thing,
Yeah.
We have a new new layer in the cake, this whole tech thing, to get you to accept the new system. It hasn't been like this before in any of the last, say, 15 grand solar minimums of currency resets, governmental change,
and
border shifts, population migration. No, it's the first time we've ever had this one. Sorry, I keep rambling too much. Go ahead.
No, that's okay. I just wanted to say thank you to Lamont for Life. They just donated $1 to the Morning Dew Super Chat. Thanks so much.
Lamont!
Yeah. And
use that to get some seeds. We're going to use it to buy some seeds.
Yeah, and that's another thing I wanted to point it out too. Both you and myself, and as well Ice Age Farmer, we all talk about growing your own food, learning how to grow your own food so that you can become self-sustainable yourself and not have to worry or depend on the powers that be. Excuse me. The powers that be got together back in 2015 and signed Agenda 21. Now, Agenda 21 is 17 steps to sustainable living, and there are a lot of good changes that will be coming thanks to this agenda, but there's also a couple strange things that are going to be coming as well, and it kind of feels like these last 8 months have been pushing us closer and closer, and pushing countries closer and closer to fulfilling this agenda. Now, they say that they want everybody in line and doing their part by 2030. Now, why would they be saying by 2030? What's going to happen in 2030? What's going to happen between 2030 and 2050? What do they know that they're not telling us? And I believe that it is this.
I don't know. What do you think? What do they know they're not telling us? Because I'm always looking for answers like that. So what do you think that they're not telling us?
Yeah, well, I really believe that they are aware of this cycle that is happening to our planet. And you've said it yourself. We're only in the beginning. We haven't even begun to really see the changes that will be happening on our planet. It's frustrating because it's evident. And why they're not talking about it is beyond me. Do they really think that we're just going to panic and freak out? I mean, we've been through worse in our times and throughout history. So, I'm all about...
Not this soft generational time. People would freak out. You got to be kidding me. People would freak out and just... Yeah, if they were... I think
you
if
don't
they
think
came
we're
clean,
desensitized?
people would actually lose their minds in today's age.
You don't think we've been desensitized to it all yet?
Oh, not even close. If anything, they've taught everybody to be... Well, you see how everything has shifted, even in a single generation of, being able to take a hit, being able to converse, being able to joke, being able to know when someone's kidding and come back with a fun quip or something, That was kind of the fun thing as a kid growing up. Somebody would try to insult you, and you'd have to be smart and fast on your feet to try to come up with a quip to slap back at him. That was kind of just good fun.
Yeah, instead
now
of...
it's like, oh, you're being... Yeah, right.
That's true. A lot of people wearing their feelings on their sleeves.
And social media and stuff.
Right?
Can you imagine it? And then somebody said, wait a second, your food, there's not going to be enough food for everybody in a few years. So, you know what? You're going to have to grow your own food, and you're going to be responsible for your own food and gardening. And people are like, I don't want to get my hands dirty. It's going to be like one of those things. You imagine the freak out of, okay, there won't be enough fresh produce in the supply chain anymore. You're going to have to you as a citizen are going to have to be responsible for growing your own food like you did with the Victory Garden. And if you don't grow it, you're not going to have enough food for your family. Like, what kind of message was that sending the all-powerful government illusion, and then also the culpability or the individual action that needed to be taken? Like, most people can't do it. They're so used to outsourcing, buying something on Amazon, getting an Uber. Damn, man, people can't even change a light bulb. Let me tell you the strangest story. When I was living in Taipei, I was over at somebody's house and the light bulb went out, and I kid you not, they go, oh, we'll get somebody to come in to change the light bulb. And I go, no, I can just stand up here because I was tall enough. And I was like, oh, no, I'll just stand here on a chair and I'll put it in. They go, you know how to change the light bulb? What do you mean, do I know how to change the light bulb? He just unscrewed the thing and put it back in. They actually were going to get a repairman to come in because they couldn't change the light bulb. No kidding. I'm not even joking. And this is the kind of level we're at, and this is the kind of thing they're at. You're going to tell people to grow their own food, or they're going to starve to death? There's such a disconnect. See what I mean? Like, society wouldn't be able to handle. I don't think they're able to handle the truth, most of it. Yeah. So whoever's getting ready, you're going to be one of the survivors, because not even more than 90. What do you think, Mike? Like, how many people in 100%? How many people do you think are ready for this with the supplies, and then also ready with this mentally?
I think
out of 100%,
10, if that.
10%. Okay.
Out of the people that I know, a lot of people like to believe that nothing is happening, shrug it off. They're going to believe the mainstream media. Oh, we're global warming. Yeah. I mean, because that's all they talk about is the 91 degrees that was recorded in the Arctic. I mean, last week. I mean, yeah, because there were freaking 180 fires burning in Russia.
Well, it gets hot in the Arctic every year. We talked about this last time too.
Yeah.
These things that happen every year are now the media events, but see, most people won't even do some research to see that it happens every year.
Mm-hmm.
Like every year it gets into the 90s in the Arctic, every single year. I mean, Siberia is incredibly hot during the summertime, whether you would know that or not, because you're thinking Siberia. Well, yeah, it's an extreme. It's either extremely cold or extremely hot. It's like a desert, it's extreme cold or it's extreme heat.
Right.
So a lot of people don't back check and fact check these. They just take the word for it. Although the 100-degree anomaly was a little strange.
Mm-hmm.
But now it's snowing in Russia, very close to the same place it was 100 degrees a couple weeks ago, but now it's snowing this week.
Yeah.
So again, you get these inversions and these flip-flops in the weather systems and the jet streams all mixed up.
Mm-hmm.
Don't think about, before I go, Mike was saying 90%. So I'll put you ahead of 9 out of 10 people. You're ahead of them right now. Excuse me, in terms of getting ready and seeing the changes and getting your mind ready. So if that can give you any solace or like motivation, you're 90% ahead of everybody else. Because if we were getting 90s on our report cards, we'd be super happy, right?
Yeah.
Like if you were going to school and you got a 90 on everything, you'd be like, hell yeah.
Oh yeah.
But
yeah,
you're 90% ahead of everybody else out there that's getting ready with these changes. So look at it that way. You're more prepared than most, even though you might not be 100% prepared. And that's the mind shift right there, is you're never going to be at 100%.
Mm-hmm.
So work with that and go backward. I have this, they don't. I have this, they don't. I got seeds, they don't. I have a generator, they don't. I have backup kerosene, they don't. I have extra lanterns, they don't.
Yeah, yeah.
The little things. Like, yeah. It's mind frame.
Yeah. And something you mentioned there reminded me, extreme cold, extreme heat. Now, anytime you get kind of those extremes working together, you get quite an extreme event. Now, across the world, we've seen extreme lightning events. The lightning strikes have increased almost double in the past 3 weeks, as I've been observing, and
it's incredible.
It is very incredible. And then we were just talking about that insane lightning strike in China that just sent plasma melting cars and just disintegrating stuff.
Melted the side of a building off that became liquid hot plasma rain that then rained down onto the cars and turned pure metal into just blocks of melted whatever it was on those cars. And I'm saying there were some people that got hit with that plasma spray and they were just melted. You probably wouldn't even know they were there. They would have been turned to liquid. That's how hot it was. I cannot believe what I saw there either.
Mm-hmm.
I'm still baffled on it, what I saw.
Yeah.
I still can't even place it in. Now, can you imagine, okay, that's the size of a building, but in the ancient lore, plasma bolts that size came and sculpted out the Grand Canyon.
Yeah.
So on orders of a scale, that was like so minuscule, that was like a 9-volt battery going bzz or something.
Right. Yeah. And that's what I've been noticing, is that these electric events are increasing. Our magnetic field excursion, our North Pole excursion, the lightning strikes. The main thing, what I wanted to talk about, the lightning strike, extreme heat, extreme
that's all
cold.
goes into it. Talking about the North Pole moving, that excursion, that's part of it too.
Yeah. I mean, now you've got the ley lines, which are, they're moving so much now, drastically around the planet. Why do you think that we're going through this such electric event right now? Is that because of the planetary conjunction, or is that because of the solar cycle? What do you think?
Likes to equalize itself. Nothing likes to stay overcharged. And for me, looking at solar panels, thinking about lead acid batteries, understanding that if you don't change your entire battery bank at one time, let's say you have 5 batteries and one of them goes bad for some reason and the other 4 are running at probably like, let's say 75%, we can leave a charge in there. Even if you put the new one at 100%, it's going to equalize with the rest of them. Let's say your battery's charging at 50%, that other battery you add in is going to equalize that charge at 50. You'll never be able to get it to over, like you're not going to have 4 of them running at 50% charge and the other one running at 100%. It just doesn't work that way.
Mm-hmm.
They equalize. So when our sun steps down in its electrical frequency, our Earth's going to equalize and with that. So our Earth is a little bit overcharged right now because over the last few thousand years, we've got an exceptionally high charge of energy in the crust.
Mm-hmm.
That's starting to, when it has a chance, jump. And you see a lot of like ground to sky lightning. So that's that equilibrium. Whenever there's a channel open that's connecting back to the sun, that is a power release that's jumping up to the sky. And then unbeknownst to you, beyond that, why they're seeing all these jets and like red sprites and blue jets and this sort of thing. Mm-hmm. Those are then connected outside our atmosphere up into where electromagnetic field lines are connecting from the sun.
Yeah.
So that electricity is trying to get out because it's overcharged on our crust. And I think that's maybe one of the mechanisms that causes more volcanoes and earthquakes during the grand solar minimums also.
I think
because
so,
it's really trying to equalize, and at some points they get these big equalization events where there's an enormous amount of energy released at one time, and then you get a volcano or an earthquake. But
yeah, it's all about balance, pretty much.
Well, since we went through a huge, massive grand solar maximum of the most electricity and event off the sun during the 1990s, you would have to think that we would also need a down step if our Earth's crust got that charged over these, super grand solar maximum. It's got to be a lot of discharging going forward. So we haven't seen much yet. We're going to see things in myth and legend occur in the skies. I would say within 2 years, you're going to see a squatter man or some kind of plasma event that hangs in the sky with the visible eye. That'll make social media news. Yeah, that's my call right there. Within 2 years, you're going to see a plasma event display in the sky that holds form that'll match or replicate something we can do in a plasma laboratory right now.
Wow.
The filament Steve's just the beginning.
Yeah. Yeah. So, another thing we talked about in our first discussion there was the clouds. I love clouds. I'm a weather junkie. I've been watching weather and our skies for as long as I can remember. And, over the past 5 years, 6 years, I've really noticed these like strange upper level clouds. And, you actually informed me a little bit a few years back as to cosmic rays and the increase in cosmic rays during a grand solar minimum due to our collapsed magnetosphere, which makes sense. That's our shield. It's shrinking on our planet right now. We've got colder temperatures that were aloft now are 1,000 feet lower. It makes sense. We've got a hot planet and extreme cold temperatures that are lower onto our surface. We're going to get these extreme electrical events, extreme atmospheric compression events. But these clouds in our upper atmosphere, that's cosmic charged particles leaving vapor? Is that what's going on up there?
Svensmark's the one you want to watch for those answers. Did you see The Cloud Mystery, that movie? Have you watched The Cloud Mystery by Heinrich Svensmark? It's a free movie on YouTube. I highly suggest this one called
I've heard about it. I've not watched it yet, but Cloud Mystery.
Yeah, you might see. Yeah, well, you talked about right there, but it's really easily explained through graphics. And see, here's the thing. Heinrich Svensmark was the one who came out with this idea that cosmic rays cause more clouds between 15,000 and 18,500 feet.
Yeah.
He was a renegade by saying this. Oh, it's not CO2. No, it's cosmic rays. And by the way, when the sun goes low, because he follows the solar cycles also, he wrote a book called The Chilling Stars, which talks about how stars go through high activity and low activity on a cycle, but then the 11-year cycle can be mapped out, and it's like an electrical frequency. We know it goes high and then low and then high and then low, about 11 years on the average. But then within that, there's those 400-year cycles on the high and the low. It takes 36 11-year cycles to make one grand solar cycle.
Right.
But then themselves, those 400-year cycles are on the 3600-year, and 9 of those makes its own cycle. And then we can come out to the great year at 25,750 years, or we can go on the full Ice Age cycle, and then those Ice Age cycles are on grand cycles of a fourth one, the fifth one being a super grand Ice Age. So he was mapping out all these cycles within the cycles and showing when we go to low solar activity, we get a lot of cosmic rays. When we have a lot of cosmic rays, like the geologic record shows, we get a lot of rainfall.
Yeah.
And beryllium-10 is one of these things that holds in the rocks that they can still find how many cosmic rays there were. So you don't really, well, trees hold it too, but I mean, a lot of the trees aren't older than, let's say, 300 to 400 years old. And then if you know the date of a flood, they can dig up the trees and then look at that, whatever. But low solar activity means more cosmic rays. More cosmic rays mean more clouds. So as we see these exceptional rain events around the world happening, that would explain it in my book. And Heinrich Svensmark's movie is an excellent one because it shows how they defunded him. Because he wouldn't go along with the CO2 building cloud narrative, he's like, no, it's cosmic rays. They took away his laboratory. They took away his funding.
What?
They booted him out of the university. So then he went on to get his own funding for his own laboratory, which he set up. And once they proved it, peer-reviewed research, and then CERN came on and backed up the research. And, oh, sorry, Heinrich, come on back, be the lead researcher at our university that we kicked you out of. And he's like, started my own research institute. You can go jump off a cliff.
Right.
But the amount of pushback on solid science, and see, once you start to learn about this, okay, if that's just one instance of how many hundreds of instances in science that have been pushed for this global warming narrative, what else is really going on out there? This guy was trying to say, Heinrich Svensmark is like, there's going to be an enormous amount of floods coming in. And Mike, you're pointing it on it every day. Like, what kind of floods are we seeing now? Some biblical every week, right?
Yeah.
Like, where's all the flood water coming from? Yeah.
There's
got to be an extra layer of cloud in the sky.
Yeah. That's reacting
with. It's a full 3,500 feet across the planet to fill up with water and then rain out. That's a lot of cloud.
Yeah. And not only that, it's mixing with our surface moisture. Our daily evaporation. So we've got, the daily evaporation. Then we've also got these cosmic rays that are coming through, penetrating, creating vapor in our upper atmosphere, and now they're mixing. And that's what I think too is what's helping really ramp up the intensity in the rain events. Talking about months worth of rain in 2-4 hours in some places. So it really makes sense, and this is why, more and more I want to share my research, share your research, and this is why I wanted to have you on here. It's been a pleasure having you on, an honor, and I'm so happy that this one went better than the last one. Sorry about the audio. I'm glad that we figured that out. But I think we've pretty much covered everything that I wanted to cover with you, Dave. But I have a question.
Well, I had a question or two for you then.
Certainly.
Well, no, I had a question or two for you then, because, you're just as much, following this, looking at it every day. Give us a timeline out. Like, what do you think your timeline is for not only the extreme events, but to the point where we just can't grow crops like we used to? And then, that's going to lead to the food inavailability, which is going to lead to more civil unrest and more governmental mandates and change, because the less food there is, the more tightly controlled the citizens need to be, because they're going to start rioting because they don't have food. See, it goes back again. The most important thing in a human's life, besides the water and the air, is going to be the food. So, through history, every time a society doesn't have enough food, they collapse. They absolutely want change in government. So knowing that, governments are going to need to provide food for people, or if they can't, and they're going to go on rationing. Hence, you're 6 feet standing apart, standing outside of a supermarket waiting to get in. They're pre-training you for rationing. But in the grander scheme of things, when there's not enough food, that's going to be the game changer. So give me a timeline out there, Mike. What do you think about timelines before food's not going to be available for everybody on the planet at the amount it is today?
Well, I would say by 2030, for sure, we will see the problem arise. But I think that just in the next few years, even you yourself, you expect a plasma event in the next couple of years. But I do believe that something in the next couple of years is going to really open people's eyes to the changes that are evident on our planet, in its atmosphere, its magnetic, and its planetary. So I think that's why, Agenda 21 was created. They want everybody signed up by 2030. So I think that by 2030, we will definitely see the food problem, food shortage problem, if we haven't done anything about it by then. But I think when it comes to weather events, I think we're going to see a lot of that this winter. When we were talking about the Australia snows and Tasmania snow from a few days ago, that low pressure system was almost the size of Australia. It almost covered the whole continent. I've never seen such a large low pressure system affect that country before. And this is something that I've noticed in the past 10 years, is that the low pressure systems are getting bigger, they're getting stronger. Same with the high pressure ridges as well. The vorsities, the lower level troughs from the low pressure systems are so much lower. They're not penetrating, they're not going over mountains. It kind of makes sense that we have a collapsed magnetosphere. Those colder temperatures are squished towards our surface, and we're seeing these cosmic rays increase rain around the world. Look at the monsoon seasons in China. Low pressure system over Mongolia sat there for 6 weeks. 6 weeks. I've never seen a low pressure system sit there. It should have been named a tropical system, the way it was just sitting there, spinning, spinning, spinning. Another thing I'd like to mention there, China has the largest weather modification station in the world, and it's on the Tibetan Plateau. 260,000 square miles of weather modification. Did you know that?
I didn't. I was only aware that sometimes they push up silver iodide. You told me in Canada, too, they also have a facility there.
Yes, we do.
Where it's not HARP or any of that kind of stuff,
Nope.
geoengineering. It's traditional silver iodide in the clouds to break up hail?
Yeah, mitigate
formations
hail.
and thunderstorms that are inbound over the crop region.
Yeah.
That's just established since, what, like the 1930s or something? Yeah.
Right. And
Nothing exotic there. It's just normal.
Yeah, I mean, and this is something that mainstream media talks about. They don't talk about it often, but every so often they'll be like, yeah, Alberta has the only weather modification station in Canada, which helps mitigate hail. And millions of dollars are put into this company every year from insurance companies to mitigate the hail, to make them a little bit smaller so they're not causing so much damage around the world. That's just one thing that they're talking about. But, I've heard about, stratospheric aerosol injections, injecting our atmosphere with barium and lithium to reflect cosmic rays, hundreds of millions of dollars being put into, looking into our upper atmosphere and what's going on there. So they obviously know that there's something strange going on, something new in our upper atmosphere, and they're not going to tell us what they're doing up there. But on the 17 Steps of Sustainable Living with Agenda 21, number 13 is the only one has an asterisk. And it says, the need to combat and control climate change. Combat and control climate change. So they know something's up. And I think that in the next 10 years, we're definitely going to know what is up. In answer to your question, for sure. By 2030, we will know.
Yeah, I might say a little bit earlier, but I was looking at one of the comments here from Chris talking about we need to shift our grow zones further south. Yeah, that's true. Now, think about this year, too. Hard red winter wheat in the United States was the lowest planting in 110 years.
Yeah.
Why did they switch over to sorghum for suddenly a new crop to grow in those areas? If wheat's getting a higher price, especially hard red winter wheat, that's the thing you make pastas from, and there's a high demand for that globally, for that really high protein content hard red winter wheat, Durham wheat, that kind of thing. Why would they switch away from the cash cow and go to sorghum unless they couldn't? Now they give you all these excuses like, well, the farmers just wanted to switch for, I don't know, whatever hundred of reasons that they keep putting out. Every article you read, there's a different reason. It's really strange. Like if they were going to switch crops and move it further south, there should be one standard reason why. It was insect pest, the prices were too low, whatever. But every one of these articles you read, of the plethora of them, there was a different excuse for everyone. No, I can't remember finding any two that were the same. It was like 30 different excuses for 30, just to confuse people maybe.
Mm-hmm.
But what had happened, in my own opinion, is the crops in the grow belts got shifted. Like the hard red winter wheat couldn't grow there anymore, so they shifted to sorghum. That's a shift. These are the kind of things we're talking about here. Now, being up in Canada, all that agriculture there is going to need to shift about 300 miles south.
Mm-hmm.
So where's that going to leave with, you know, the canola crops, some of the wheat crops up there? You're already seeing an enormous amount of hail damage.
Yeah.
So if that pushes 300 miles south, you got no more agriculture in Canada.
Mm-hmm.
Then what?
Yeah, and it's quite worrisome here in Alberta. You know, a lot of ranchers and farmers are worried, and
They're seeing it, aren't they? They're seeing the changes, aren't they?
Yeah, they are. They are, and a lot of times, Ice Age farmer Christian, he reports on Alberta farmers as well. I mean, so the changes are evident here in Alberta, and I don't know if this was on the microphone in the beginning, but when I woke up this morning, it was 5 degrees Celsius here in Calgary, Alberta. And it snowed, 35 kilometers west of us in Banff last night. It was snowing. So a lot of people are starting to notice the colder temperatures, the looming winter that just seemed to hang out forever. I'm happy to be here, to be able to share my research, keep people aware and prepared. And I'm super happy to have you on, and as well being able to follow your research. I look forward to possibly another future discussion with you. And this has been great. I want to thank you for coming onto the show. This has been a first Do Discussions with David Dubyne from Adapt 2030.
Do Discussions, awesome title.
Yeah, and I'm hoping to, just really share our research and share our love for humanity, because that's what this is all about. I want to keep people, as many as I can, aware and prepared to the changes that are coming, and possibly save your life. With disaster alerts from around the world, tornado warnings, earthquake updates, volcano updates, Morning Dew is here for you. But so is Adapt 2030, helping you prepare for the future and thrive in a sustainable new world. Growing food is going to be essential and probably the most important thing that humans have had to really take a rein on here, because we're definitely going to see changes around the world, as we already are.
Yeah, climate preparedness. And, just to sign off here with a final thought about Greenland, the Greenland ice melt season has finished already. So, we keep hearing in the media, oh, it's going to melt off into oblivion, blah, blah, blah. The melt season this year has stopped a month early. And I encourage you to do your own research on that, what that means. But to counteract that negative news story, because it doesn't follow some certain agendas to get you into a global tax, they're trying to report on an area of Arctic ice that's the size of Manhattan Island that melted. Wait a second. The Arctic melts every year in the summertime. Did you not know that? It's a cycle.
Mm-hmm.
So for them to report on an area of the size of Manhattan Island that's melting in the summer, in the melt season in the Arctic Ocean, is like saying, well, the grass got green in the summer in my yard, basically. Newsflash, the grass is green in my yard in summer.
Yeah, so is my neighbor's.
Well, it's not the newsflash. What about all the gaining ice? Yeah. What about all the gaining ice? See, that should be the front page news. We were supposed to stop all this. We were supposed to reverse the ice loss on Greenland, and it reversed completely to a point where, wow, it's into the billions and billions of gigatons coming back over the last few years. And now you should take a look at these last couple of days and see the gains that are on there in terms of dozens, if not 100 gigatons of new ice has been pushed up on there through the snowfalls and whatnot over the last few days. Not melting.
Yeah.
Gaining.
Yeah.
Now we're talking about all these millions of gigatons that have been put up there. You're talking about several years worth of gains. But, when we go back in this last year, or then you go into the monthly and the daily, and it's like tens of gigatons lost, tens of gigatons gained, hundreds lost, hundreds gained, or thousands lost, thousands gains during the month. So this gigatons, you're getting up in an enormous amount of weight here. So it's hard to almost rationalize the weight loss on these types of things. You're talking about thousands and thousands and millions of tons equals one of those. Like 1,000 million tons equals 1 gigatons. Okay. Put that into perspective. Like, how much does that really weigh? But anyway, that much as media loves to talk about melting, but when it's gaining that much and above and above and above on the daily, doesn't make news. I don't know why, because we were supposed to stop the Greenland melt. It stopped melting. It's freezing early this year in August, but nobody wants to talk about that. But I please go do your own research on that, and I'll sign off. Thanks for letting me ramble here, Mike.
Hey, you're welcome. It was
you got a good rambling venue.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's been great, and it's been natural. It feels like, and I'm glad that we were able to finally get this done. Thank you for coming on.
Hey, you're welcome. Another cup of coffee. I got a video to produce myself, so I'm going to get on to the next vid for today. And dust storms in Jaisalmer. You're going to love it. Looks like right out of the movie, the Mummy, this big dust storm rolling over Jaisalmer in western Rajasthan over in India.
Really?
I traveled there. That's why I know this. Yeah,
nice. Well, I look forward to it. Yeah, and please, everybody, don't forget to subscribe to Adapt 2030. Link will be in the description below. Mr. David Dubyne, thank you. And I will see you again.
Yeah, pleasure being here, and I'll talk to y'all later. Bye for now.
Stay aware and prepared. Bye, everybody.